A darling bishop of radical traditionalists, Athanasius Schneider, just nuked all of their anti-papal rhetoric. Seriously. Joining us with the latest from the Eternal City, Church Militant Rome correspondent, Dr. Jules Gomes. Jules, Bishop Schneider just set off shockwaves through the anti-papal trad communities throughout the world. Tell us about what happened.
Brad, Bishop Athanasius Schneider of Kazakhstan has dropped a virtual bombshell on the playground of radical traditionalists, demolishing and steamrolling all their arguments against Pope Francis being a non-pope, an anti-pope, or a heretical pope.
Now, before we get into all of the parts of the statement there, why do you believe he came out with this statement now?
Well, Father James Altman, the celebrity priest, published a video about 2 weeks ago, or 3 weeks ago, if I remember. This comes after another video talk that he gave at a conference. And basically, Father Altman, trashes Pope Francis, calling him Bergoglio. He says Pope Francis is not the Pope, he's an anti-Pope. And this video has caused a lot of hue and cry in the traditionalist communities. Many of them divided, some of them saying, yes, Father Altman is right, the others saying no. And Father Altman uses some of these arguments, for example, quoting the great Jesuit doctor of the church, Saint Robert Bellarmine. And Bishop Athanasius Schneider is responding to those arguments.
So now one of the quotes here, there is no authority to declare or consider an elected and generally accepted pope as an invalid pope, Schneider says. And one of the things that Altman actually is doing, and others, not just Altman, I mean, I personally like Father Altman as a person, as a priest. I've known him as a friend. But he and others are saying that he lists a whole bunch of things that he believes are heretical. And then number two, that automatically invalidates the Pope. What does Schneider say about that, specifically about that heresy and judging the Pope to be a heretic and then all that?
Well, let me read verbatim to our viewers what he has to say. He says, he dismantles that notion, Brad. He says, even in the case of a heretical pope, he will not lose his office automatically, and there is nobody within the church to declare him deposed because of heresy. Such actions would come close to a kind of a heresy of conciliarism or episcopalism. The heresy of conciliarism or episcopalism basically says that there is a body within the church, either an ecumenical council, synod, college of cardinals, college of bishops, which can issue a legally binding judgment over the Pope. And of course, there's been this great tension in church history, particularly in the 13th, 14th centuries, between conciliarism and the monarchical papacy. And Schneider is warning that this danger of conciliarism might be raising its head again, particularly, interestingly, among traditionalists.
I'm glad he brent up the College of Cardinals there, saying, because a lot of people think, well, if all the bishops in the world can get together or can't get together and declare the Pope, deposed, well, that would be conciliarism, but then the College of Cardinals can do that, a group of cardinals. Well, he says, no, that's conciliarism too. Now, many in the many trad circles, they're marshalling up, as you mentioned, St. Robert Bellarmine, who they say taught that a heretical pope loses his office immediately. Did Schneider address that?
Absolutely, and he's done it extremely well. He said the theory of the automatic loss of the papacy due to heresy remains only an opinion. And even St. Robert Bellarmine noticed this and did not present itself as a teaching of the magisterium itself. The perennial papal magisterium never taught such an option. He then goes on to quote the 1917 Code of Canon law, which when it came in force, the magisterium of the church, writes Schneider, eliminated from the new legislation the remark of the Decretum Gratiani in the old Corpus Iuris Canonici, which stated that a pope who deviated from right doctrine can be deposed.
And that goes all the way back to 1917 when they removed that remark. So that's a long history of canon law as it got all codified then. Now, some radtrads just insist that the church at one time taught that the church could somehow depose the Pope. What does Schneider say about that?
Schneider shoots down this opinion, and here's what he says. Never in history the magisterium of the church did admit any canonical procedures of deposition of a heretical pope. The church has no power over the pope formally or judicially.
Now, setting aside what Altman was talking about, he was talking more about the heresies or supposed heresies of Pope Francis, and that they somehow just automatically vaporize the legitimacy of his papacy. But there are others now, other traditionalists who, sedevacantists, who actually say his election, Pope Francis' election, was somehow invalid, and therefore he's not the Pope. What did he say about that?
Well, Schneider addresses even this argument by sedevacantist trads, saying, I quote, "The constant practice of the church makes it evident that even in the case of an invalid election, this invalid election will be de facto healed through the general acceptance of the new elected by the overwhelming majority of the cardinals and bishops."
That's really interesting. I mean, this is just new water for me in that area. It's really interesting he lays that out there. So what can be done then, does he say, if some pope seemingly gets off track and teaches some things that are questionable or problematic? What does he say about that?
Again, Schneider anticipates this question and he responds cogently. He says, Catholic tradition teaches that in the case of a heretical pope, the members of the church can avoid him, resist him, refuse to obey him, all which can be done without requiring a theory or opinion that says that a heretical pope automatically loses his office or can be deposed consequently.
So that's really out there. Now, once again, that's not right there is not Church Militant's opinion. We're reporting on what Bishop Schneider said. So as far as resisting the Pope and all that, it's that's between him and the Pope. Does Bishop Schneider think that the Pope can actually preach heresy?
Well, Brad, we must say that Bishop Schneider does not name Pope Francis here, but it's obvious that he's referring to the present pontiff. But this is how he puts it. He separates the ex cathedra infallible pronouncements of the pontiff from off-the-cuff remarks he might make. And he says the Pope cannot commit heresy when he speaks ex cathedra. This is a dogma of faith. In his teaching outside of ex cathedral statements, however, he can commit doctrinal ambiguities, errors, and even heresies.
Yeah, and we have to remember that the Pope's probably not going to come out, any Pope's probably not going to come out and say, I hereby solemnly declare for all ages that everybody has to believe, contraception is okay. He probably just won't enforce it when other people talk against it or whatever else. And he takes that, with him on Judgment Day. Certainly not every Pope is guaranteed salvation just because he became Pope of the Holy Mother Church, but actually is going to be judged more stringently. All the Popes will because of that. Well, Bishop Schneider really has done a great service to all Catholics today, but he's shown himself really to be a great friend of the sedevacantists, those who say that the seat is vacant. Pope Francis wasn't the Pope, John Paul II wasn't the Pope, all the way back. All these traditionalists, and not because they love the TLM, but because they are sedevacantists. He really is a friend of theirs. He himself, being their friend and fellow traditionalist, is pulling them back from the abyss of schism. His latest clarification will save many souls. Thank you so much, Bishop Schneider. Jules, and thank you for laying all this out for us today.
Thank you, Brad.